This is the partially restored lock number 24 on the Whitewater Canal in southern Indiana. I'm Darren, and this is the Industrial Revolution. So we take a look at the lock, we can see it's not really quite fully restored yet, although it's actually in pretty good shape. Probably better shape than you'd think looking at it. There's a cofferdam here, so that they can actually keep most of the water out while they work on it, although it's partially flooded around it. The whaler gates are in pretty good shape. You have the stone upper walls. You can see if you look down towards the bottom, there's a little hole there in that one whaler gate. And you can just make out the wicket gate at the bottom of the one on the right. So looking down the canal, you might think that looks like wood grain, and it kind of does. That's not really wood grain on the side. This is limestone. This is just tooling marks and wear marks on the stone. Limestone is quite a bit softer than sandstone, so it does wear a little quicker. Also works a little quicker than sandstone. Now you can see this lock actually had a pretty substantial drop to it. They typically try to avoid having more than about a 10-foot drop. If you go more than about 10 feet, you find the water from the upper gate tends to spray in onto people in their boats. Whereas most people don't like that. They don't like getting their passengers or their cargo soaked. So the canal water is low today. They actually just had a flooding event. And just a couple days ago, they had some massive flooding that damaged an aqueduct just upriver. So much of the water is not actually making it past there right now, and they have it greatly decreased coming into the canal above there as well. The Whitewater River, if we look over here to the left, you can see the Whitewater River flowing there. So the Whitewater Canal today is not really in such great shape. The canal construction began in 1836. It was part of the state of Indiana's Mammoth Internal Improvement Act, designed to create infrastructure throughout the state. They stopped construction in 1839 due to the state bankruptcy. Now the term bankruptcy is, in 1839 it didn't mean what it means today, but effectively it meant the state ran out of money. They resumed construction in 1842, and it was done by the Whitewater Valley Canal Company, which completed the canal in 1847. In total, there were 56 locks, 7 dams, and a 491-foot drop from one end to the other. Comparing it with a canal you might be more familiar with, the Erie Canal, that has 83 locks and a 500-foot drop over a longer distance. So this is a very steep canal, which is why some of the locks, like Lock 24, are just so big. Well, the purpose of the canal was to connect the Whitewater Valley, where we are now, to the Ohio River. Originally, it went from Cambridge City on the old National Road down to Lawrenceburg on the Ohio River. On the north, it got extended to Hagerstown for a total of 76 miles. The state of Ohio wanted in on the fun, and they added a 25-mile section from Harrison, just north of Lawrenceburg, all the way over to Cincinnati, which added another 10 locks and, like I said, 25 miles. The first boat on the canal ran from Lawrenceburg to Brooksville on June 8th of 1839. Well, a flood happened in 1847, just a few months after the canal was finished and open for business, and caused massive damage. The southernmost section from Lawrenceburg to Harrison was never reopened at that point. All the traffic at the south end was diverted over to Cincinnati on the newly constructed Whitewater and Cincinnati Canal. It took them 10 months after that flood in 1847 to fully reopen, and massive debt. It's a debt that the canal company never really recovered from. So the water right now is pretty low, and believe it or not, that's actually caused by flooding. If we'd been out here 2 days ago, you would have had about 4 feet of water here in the canal. But a couple days ago they had heavy rains, and the rains caused some damage to the wooden aqueduct just upriver from here. A tree coming down poked a hole through the side of the wooden aqueduct, and that resulted in a major leak. So at this point almost nothing's coming down river below the aqueduct, and they've greatly reduced the water coming into it above the aqueduct so they can work on it. They are working to fix it, and they're hoping to have that fixed within the next day or so. Flooding wasn't an uncommon thing on canals. In fact, this canal, although it had only been in use for a short time, in the early 1860s, this canal actually was shut down due to damage caused by flooding. That actually led them in 1863 to turn over most of the towpath as a rail line, and it's still in use as a rail line today. And you can still ride trains on it today for a short run. There's actually a couple of lines that run. There's one that runs hourly. There's another one that runs daily for a longer trip. Of course, once the canal was officially closed, the locks were no longer needed, but many of them still had a good, reliable water source. Some old canal locks, like this one, lock number 25, next to the Metamora grist and roller mill, see my video on that, was eventually converted to take advantage of the drop to run a water wheel. Walking around the lock, you can see another critical component of any canal lock, which is the bypass. This allowed water to get around locks or other canal infrastructure, rather than backing up behind it and potentially overflowing and damaging the structures. Although these didn't last very long, canals like this were honestly pretty essential. They filled in the holes before the railroads moved in, and they really created a lot of the small towns that we see, really helped to create a lot of the big cities we see as well. And that's why, even though they didn't last long, this is the Industrial Revolution. Before you go, I do need some help. Easiest thing you can do to help is simply like the video, also subscribe and hit notify. That goes a long ways towards telling YouTube, hey, these videos are worth watching, the channel's good, and it'll show it to more people. More people I have come in, bigger the channel grows. Also, if you can comment or participate over in the discussion tabs, that also goes a long ways towards helping with the video stats. It shows YouTube that people are actually participating and getting involved. have a Patreon page at patreon.com/Industrial Revolution if you want to help out there as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you at the next one.